There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Maybe you know what it means to lie awake at night, tangled in your own thoughts, searching for a soft place to land inside yourself. Maybe there was a time when you questioned everything, or maybe you never knew questioning could set you free. That's exactly what Byron Katie questions that set you free at night once felt too. So, wherever you are, however you arrived here tonight, this space is just for you. Close your eyes a little heavier if you want. Sink into the pillow. Let the world soften around the edges while we travel, breath by breath, into the ordinary magic and midnight clarity of one woman's journey, a way of seeing that might light up the parts of you that ache for freedom. There are nights when the questions come, not just the big ones, but the quiet ones echoing beneath the skin. Have you ever wondered what your life would be like without suffering? What you would feel like if, just for a moment, everything could drop away? Everything you think you know about pain. Tonight, as you drift, leave those old stories at the door. Follow the sound of a voice in the night that is not here to fix you, but to help you remember who you really are. You don't have to believe anything. Just settle in with curiosity. Let the air in your chest be soft and ordinary, and feel what it's like to be gently witnessed. Byron Katie's questions began in the darkest hours, and tonight you'll see yourself in her shadow and shine alike. Maybe your mind is busy, restless. Maybe you've tried to problem solve yourself to sleep. Or maybe you're simply tired in your heart. Let that be welcome here. This is not about finding the right answer. It's about meeting yourself where you are, with the kind of honesty you rarely give yourself permission to hold. Byron Katie once found herself lost in darkness, not a dramatic darkness, just the kind that creeps in on ordinary lives, the kind we can all meet late at night when nobody else is watching. It was her willingness to meet that place, to not look away, that changed the course of her life, and in the quiet may slowly shift the course of yours. So breathe, let's go back, back to the beginning, before the questions were shaped, before the answers came. Make yourself comfortable. There is nothing left to do, just listen. Feel the invitation, the permission, the pause. Something precious sleeps in this darkness. Maybe it's your own freedom. Maybe it's just the next easy breath. Either way, tonight we'll find it together. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Maybe you're here because something feels tight in your chest, or a question in your mind won't let you sleep. Maybe you can't quite pinpoint the moment you started searching, but something in you wants stillness. Maybe there was a time when pain circled you like shadow, and you just wanted relief, not an answer, just a breath. That's exactly what Byron Katie questions that set you free at night once felt too. Sometimes it's not a big story. Sometimes suffering doesn't look dramatic. Maybe you sit there night after night on a bed that's barely warm and you wonder if things could be different. Maybe all you want is to feel, even for a moment, free. Byron Katie's journey slips right through that crack in the dark, the part of you that aches, the part of you that wonders whether peace is real, whether a real human somewhere has found the switch from suffering to clarity and lived to tell the story. That's where we begin, not with drama, not with myth, but with a slow, honest unraveling. The peace you seek tonight isn't a trophy. It's not some glowing magic at the end of a long crawl. Tonight, we just walk with Byron in the most ordinary stillness to remember how freedom might find us when we aren't looking. You don't have to believe anything new. You don't have to get your life together by morning. Tonight, you're just here, letting the story slip alongside your breath. If you've ever felt alone in your struggle, if your heart has ever puzzled over how to be okay with what is, this is the breath between you and some deeper part of your own nature. You don't need to do anything except listen. Let the story lay its hand on your shoulder. Let this be a night where you're not searching, just remembering. Because sometimes the deepest wisdom isn't loud or wise at all. Sometimes it's a question. Sometimes it waits for you in the hush between heartbeats, a gentle pause, an invitation you don't have to answer right now, tonight. Byron Katie's story becomes not only a way to understand suffering and freedom, but maybe, just maybe, a way home to yourself. And so we begin just by breathing in the question, letting the quiet wash over your tired mind, and trusting that anything you need might arrive only as fast as you can let go. She began as someone ordinary. Nothing about her early morning would have told you a mystic song was brewing in her bones. Born in the desert winds of Texas, raised under big skies, Byron Kathleen Reed, as she was known then, carried that mix of American grit and quiet ache. There was a restlessness that coiled around her younger years, a hunger for something she couldn't name. It wasn't unique, that feeling, just a subtle emptiness, like waking up before dawn and not knowing if you want to sleep or run. You could see her as a little girl, bare feet in the dust, watching the sky turn tangerine. Not a child obsessed with mystery, but one who quietly sensed when the world tipped too heavy. Some people are born awake to pain, and for Katie, that awareness only grew sharper with age. There were stretches of sunlight, but always a question trailing her. Why does the world hurt? Her family stories of simplicity, of struggling to belong, of withdrawing into silence when the house felt too crowded with chaos. Money was always a shadow. Love flared up and faded. Sometimes all you have is yourself. So she learned to watch, learned to listen for storms inside mood and memory, never quite sure when the ache would rise. School days felt like moving through water. You do what's expected, You make it through, but inside, there's a voice wondering if you're the only one faking ease. Friends came and went, teachers slipped past the ache in her eyes. She longed for something more, even if she didn't know the name. Later, as a young adult, she tried to build a normal life. Marriage, children, the shape of family like the outline of a house in the dusk. But peace was slippery. On the outside, everything might look fine. Inside, the questions ringed her mind. What's wrong with me? Am I broken for not feeling okay with my life? Why does it seem like others walk lighter through their days? You might recognize this ache. Maybe you've had mornings where the sun is out and the world is still gray, where you go through motions, smile at the right times, but something unnamed weighs you down. That's what Byron Katie walked with, an intimacy with suffering that felt private, sometimes shameful, never quite dramatic enough for rescue. But always, beneath all the noise, there was a longing, not for answers yet, just for a different way of being, for a single night of sleep without the mind gnawing, for one clear breath, for a moment where the ache went silent. And so, year after year, that hunger grew and waited. There's a moment in every life when something quietly changes. For some, it's a lightning strike. For others, it's a gentle, persistent whisper that will not let go. Before her life bent toward freedom, Byron Katie's pain tightened its grip. Her suffering was not abstract. It was daily, shapes of depression, rage, self-loathing. The world narrowed. She withdrew from her own life. Some days she stayed in bed for hours, not because she was tired, but because the world outside felt jagged. The mind wouldn't stop. The pain felt real, felt permanent. She did her best to hold her family together, but inside she was unraveling. Have you ever felt trapped by your own thoughts? That's what it was for her. A prison built of beliefs she couldn't see, yet couldn't shake. The cycle of pain, blame, guilt. Then something happened. There was a morning like so many before, nothing special about it. But in the quiet, something cracked open. She saw her thoughts, really saw them for the first time. Not as reality, but as stories. For a split second, a gap opened. She noticed that all her suffering came from believing her thoughts. In that instant, something let go. No drama, just a deep, silent recognition. When I believed my thoughts, I suffered. When I questioned them, I didn't. This wasn't a philosophy. It was a shift in being. The pain didn't vanish. Life didn't suddenly become easy, but a space opened. Fresh air within the mind. The light that poured in wasn't loud. It was subtle, the shock of not needing to fix everything, only to question what was believed to be true. This was the birth of her work, a framework that begins with honest questioning. Is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? The rest unfolded quietly, not in classrooms, not on a stage, but in the smallest private places, in the slip of a moment between fighting reality and relaxing into what is. Each day wasn't simple, but now there was an anchor, the tool of honest, present inquiry. And so a new chapter began, not a story of overnight rescue, but a story of living one question at a time, letting the possibility of freedom edge closer, with every surrendered belief, with every breath. There's a sacred struggle in every transformation, and Byron Katie's was anything but clean or linear. After her quiet awakening, old patterns didn't just disappear. Suffering returned, though now it looked different, as if testing if this clarity could hold against the darker waves. Some mornings she'd rise with a sense of levity. Others she'd feel grief, anger, despair, just as before. The difference? Now there was a gap, a place to notice, to question, to sit quietly with whatever arose. Friends and family were skeptical. Some saw her as changed, others as strange. Living your truth rarely pleases everyone at once. There were awkward dinners, strange silences at home, a sense that people weren't ready for her new way of existing. Katie learned to walk with discomfort, to welcome each feeling, to question every painful thought. But none of this was graceful. She cried, she lost patience, she doubted herself. You might think a mystic lives outside regular pain, but that's never the case. She was here in the trenches, meeting every moment with as much honesty as she could manage. It's easy to idealize awakening, but the truth is, it's mostly stumbling. Coming home to yourself means bumping up against everything within you that's wired for struggle. Byron Katie faced the mess, the old triggers, the tired stories. She watched herself slip back, get angry, feel small. But she kept questioning, even her sense of progress, even the idea that she should be enlightened. At night, in the quiet, the work became her ritual. Slowly, gently, the jagged edges of suffering softened. Relationships shifted, not always neatly. Sometimes things fell apart. But she kept breathing, kept asking, is it true? This isn't a fairy tale. It's a real human untangling her own knots again and again in the dark. Then, at last, there was a turning point. Not a chorus of angels, not a spotlight, just a threshold, a night when the air felt different. One evening, after years of practicing presence and inquiry, she realized peace was not a destination. It was a willingness to stop arguing with reality in every small moment. It wasn't dramatic, just a breath, a decision to allow things to be as they are. The grip of suffering weakened. Maybe you felt something like this. You spend years fighting what is the past, your partner, your body, the world. Then, for no reason at all, you just let go. Not as a spiritual trick, not because your problems are fixed, but because you're exhausted, soft, open. The resistance drops and stillness enters. For Byron Katie, this was liberation, not the end of trouble, but the end of believing the mind's stories as gospel truth. She felt humbled, quiet, gentle with herself and with life. She still questioned. She still struggled at times. But now each thought could be met with inquiry, each pain a chance to open. She wasn't special or enlightened. She was awake to the rhythm of truth and illusion, and she walked lightly with both. From then on, her life reshaped around this new center. The questions became not just tools, but a way of being. And slowly, she began to live in sync with reality, not in battle against it. A person in alignment looks ordinary from the outside. Katie got up, brushed her teeth, made coffee. She did ordinary things, walked in her neighborhood, cooked meals, answered calls. But now everything was colored by presence. She became immensely gentle with herself. She laughed easily. She forgave quickly. She noticed small beauties, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of someone's voice, the simplicity of breath. This wasn't a performance. She wasn't trying to be spiritual. She simply moved through her days as if each moment was a chance to question, to soften, to return. When hard feelings arose, she'd pause, meet them, and invite inquiry. Nothing was an enemy now. Even pain had permission to be there. The people around her shifted, drawn to her lightness, even if they didn't understand it. Children, strangers, old friends, all could sense something was different. The way she listened, the patience in her eyes, the ease in her body. Katie found herself walking in nature more, finding rest in quiet spaces. She wasn't hiding from life, but opening to it, each sensation, each thought, as an invitation. The rhythm was slower now, the mind less like a tyrant, more like a curious friend. Over time, the practice became natural. She didn't live as someone above it all. She made mistakes, forgot sometimes, had bad days. But now return was always possible. The world softened. Life continued, moment by ordinary moment, with presence as her true home. Every master is just a person who practiced coming home. For Byron Katie, her real skill wasn't superhuman willpower or divine wisdom. It was the steady, humble, daily act of noticing. She became a master of seeing, seeing thoughts as thoughts, emotions as visitors, life as life. If mastery looked like anything, it was in the way she paused, breathed, and asked a question when her mind tried to convince her of disaster. She watched herself, not with judgment, but with compassion. The skill wasn't to control life, but to meet it. One day a friend came to her, overwhelmed by grief. The old Katie might have rushed to fix or explain. Now she just sat. She listened. She offered nothing but her full presence, and when the time was right, a gentle question. Is it true? The space this created changed the room. The friend didn't find quick relief, but found her own permission to feel and to question. Katie's mastery, if you would call it that, was always about returning, the willingness to come back again and again to what was here, to not let a single painful story go unquestioned. This skill reshaped her life, not through achievement, but through surrender. You can hear it in her laughter, see it in her eyes when she meets strangers. An unshakable trust in the aliveness of the moment, the power of inquiry, the permission to not know. There are hidden laws in every awakened life, but Byron Katie didn't wear them as badges. They showed up as rhythm, as how she met reality. She moved with life, not against it. When disappointment appeared, she didn't resist. She welcomed it, trusted it had something to show. When someone judged her, she watched the pain, questioned the story, softened around it. Her spiritual code was simple but invisible. Stop fighting with what is. Find what's true in the heart of suffering. Let each thought, each feeling be met with honesty. The old rules fell away, fixing, pleasing, resisting. Instead, she let each wave pass, meeting it with curiosity and trust. That was her hidden law. Reality is kinder than the mind believes it to be. In daily life, this looked like ease. She forgave quickly. She grieved fully. She delighted in small things. She met every joy and sorrow as a guest, never mistaking it for the whole of truth. If you could sit with Byron Katie's soul, ask her in the dark, "What would you whisper to us now?" She might say, "You are not your thoughts. Whatever you believe, question it gently with love. Don't rush. Give everything time to unfold. Peace is the space between two thoughts. Find it. Rest there. Let the questions breathe. You don't have to change anything tonight. Just notice where suffering begins, where relief follows. You have permission to meet this moment without resistance. Everything that hurts can be questioned. Freedom isn't a destination. It's the willingness to see things as they are, to love reality even when it stings. Suffering is not your enemy. It's your invitation. Each breath is a chance to begin again. As this story fades into the rhythm of night, let the presence linger. You're not alone. The same freedom that called Byron Katie home is with you now. Let's breathe together. I walk with light. I walk with light. Let that settle like a whisper through your chest. I remember the stillness. I remember the stillness. I remember the stillness. Wrap yourself in this gentle mantra. It's not magic. It's a return. Each moment, each breath, the story becomes yours. This is also my path. This is also my path. This is also my path. Tonight, as you slip into sleep, let the story hold you. The journey to peace is quiet, simple, and always available. Rest here. Rest here. Rest here. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt the thrum of your own thoughts, noisy and relentless, following you from room to room as the night unwinds? Maybe there was a time when you tried to outrun those same thoughts, searching for silence that always seemed two steps ahead. That's exactly what Byron Katie questions that set you free at night once felt too. It's not about being above the mess or untouched by confusion. Byron came from the same soil of regular life, dust on the table, arguments in the hall, mornings that felt heavy for no clear reason. Before anything changed, there was simply pain and longing, just like you, just like anyone who has ever laid awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if there's a way through. Each night, as the sky dims, the questions grow louder. They come wrapped in memories, plans, regrets, and what-ifs. We say we want answers, but so often we're just thirsty for real relief, a way to breathe easier. That's exactly where Byron's story begins. Not in some spotlight, but in the dark corners of an ordinary life, pressing up against the ache of the mind. So bring your tiredness, Bring your confusion and your hope. Tonight is not about learning someone's teachings from books or memorizing facts about their achievements. It's about getting closer to what makes us, all of us, long for freedom. You and Byron, not so different in the silent hours. Both of you have tasted the weight of your own worries. Both of you know what it's like to reach for something softer, something that empties you out and fills you up at the very same time. As you settle into the night, I'll be your companion. We're going to walk together into the places Byron once hid from, where fear and wonder meet. We'll feel where her story and yours start to blend, until, in the hush between words, you start to hear your own longing echoing back. This isn't about someone else's journey. It's a whisper that maybe, just maybe, the path you're looking for is not far away. Tonight, in the rhythm of breath and the quiet between thoughts, Byron's questions could become your toolkit, her freedom a possibility as real as your next inhale. Let the day fall away. Let the story begin. There's a small house in the desert sun. The wind moves through open windows, carrying dust and silence. Inside, a little girl stands just outside the reach of conversation, holding her breath to listen. Byron Kathleen Reed was born in that space, a world tinted with western heat and the low hum of uncertainty. She didn't know it then, but that longing for peace began long before she had words for it. Children are expert listeners, after all. Every slammed door, every whispered secret, all folded inside like sheets after laundry day. Katie's world, as she called herself, was one where the ordinary could crack open into wonder or press down into confusion, depending on the day. There were times when she felt invisible, standing in small family rooms while grown-up words ricocheted off the walls. Sadness lived in the corners sometimes, but so did hope. Even from a young age, she noticed the way silence wasn't always empty. It was often full of questions no one knew how to ask. Maybe you remember a moment like that, sitting in the background, heart pounding for no reason, knowing you wanted something but not sure what. That restless ache hasn't left her or you. It just changes shape as we grow. Days stretched long, filled with the swirl of family and chores and whatever passed for certainty. There was an ache for something true, something reliable. She felt it most at night, just before sleep, when all the noises went quiet and only the questions remained. Why do the people we love hurt so much? Why does calm feel so fragile, like a soap bubble, here 1 second and gone the next? There was no big answer, not yet, but there was a pulse beneath her ribs, a sense that there's more to life than pain, if only we had the courage to look right at it. And so the silent longing began. As the world moved on, as days blurred into years, Katie carried a softness hidden beneath ordinary life, a curiosity that most people outgrow, a hope that one day all this confusion would make sense. If that longing sounds familiar, that's no coincidence. It's the same inner search that lives in everyone who's ever tried to fix themselves or wished for peace in the night. For this girl, being alive meant carrying that secret ache, wondering if anyone else felt it too. If you listen now, you can almost hear her heartbeat, matching the rhythm of your own. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on the Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Maybe you're lying there tonight, wanting the noise in your head to slow down. Or maybe you just feel a gentle ache, some unnamed tiredness, some question that won't leave you alone. If you've ever felt on the outside of your own life, doubting what's true, wishing to rest in something softer than thought, that's exactly what Byron Katie questions that set you free at night once felt too. Have you ever been awake at 3 a.m., tangled in what ifs, or wondering if you'll ever feel truly at ease? Maybe there was a time you wished someone would just reach through the dark, rest their hand on your shoulder, and tell you it's okay to let go. Not just the old stories or expectations, but that knot in your chest, that endless thinking. What if the peace you're looking for has been with you all along? That's what tonight is about. Not learning facts and dates, but letting the life of Byron Katie move gently through your own being, opening doors where stress once lived, bringing a kind of softness, a kind of remembrance right here in the dark. As you settle in, know that you can let your guard down. There's no expectation, nothing to prove. Each moment here is an invitation, not to follow, but to meet yourself. The story will unfold in the quiet, like a gentle breeze over water. Every breath you take is a chance to start anew. Maybe you're listening for sleep, or maybe you're listening because the old ways of thinking have started to crack. This is a soul biography, a living presence carried in voice. Byron Katie, who once suffered deeply, would want you to know you are not broken. Even if your mind feels heavy, even if the questions seem too big, there's a space here for you to rest. So let the world drop away for a while. Let your mind relax. Here you can just be. As the story finds its way into your heart, let it bring more than knowledge. Let it bring you home. As we begin, know that the story won't judge or hurry. It's a steady, gentle companion, winding through the quiet hours of your night. And maybe, somewhere between a question and a breath, you'll find what you've always longed for. The place in you that's already free. When Byron Katie's name is mentioned, people sometimes think of the work, those gentle, radical questions that turn inner struggle into peace. But before there was teaching, before the questions or the books, there was an ordinary person longing for relief. That's where we start tonight. Not with knowledge, but with a feeling you may already know. The longing for quiet, for belonging, for the end of restless war in your mind. Tonight, in these hours, you're invited just to listen. Imagine the story like a warm blanket, a steady hand, a slow rhythm carrying you deeper, slower, further inward. Every chapter will soften the edges, inviting you to see yourself in the mirrors of Byron Katie's journey. You don't have to believe anything or change or figure it out. Just let the voice stay with you, shadow and light, all the way to the edge of sleep and beyond. If you're ready, let's begin the journey. Let's meet the longing, the spark, the struggle, and the freedom, and let it gently wake a remembering inside you tonight and every night after. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Here, under the quiet hush of the modern mystic, all you have to do is exhale. Let the weight go right where you are. Tonight, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. This story is yours too, if you've ever reached for clarity in the dark, if you ever longed silently for peace, for purpose, for a glimpse of that freedom that might let you sleep at last. Have you ever felt that tension? You know, the one that knots the chest and burns behind the eyes before bed. Maybe there was a time, as the day was slipping away, when the old stories, the guilt, the questions, the longing, just kept circling. That's exactly what Byron Katie questions that set you free at night once felt too. Long nights, heavy thoughts, a searching heart that wouldn't quiet no matter how the hours ticked by. So stay for a while. You don't need to solve everything now. Let's just drift together as presence unravels the world Byron Katie inhabited. As her story settles into your bones, some tales are about heroes who conquer. This one's different. It's about someone who learned to be still in the struggle, someone who listened to the pain until it softened, who questioned their deepest fears not to vanquish them, but to become friends with the silence they left behind. If that sounds like something you've wished for, you're in the right place. What's waiting for you tonight isn't advice or rules or dusty philosophy. It's a gentle journey inward. It's the pulse you feel when you're finally able to set your burdens down. It's the soft curiosity that rises when you stop fighting your own thoughts and just ask, is it true? So rest your eyes. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. Let your body sink heavier into the sheets. You're safe here. Safe to hear, and maybe even to remember, how one wounded soul turned questions into liberation, turning restless nights into a place of freedom. Ready? Just breathe with me. Let Byron Katie's story enter in as softly as the night itself. This may not solve everything, not right away, but it might just show you a new way to rest, to listen, to wonder. And that's where we begin. She was born in the thick of possibility. Texas, wide sky, open road. Young Byron Kathleen Reed, called Katie, arrived not with answers, but with that peculiar ache, the longing most people carry secretly. Childhood meant the hum of cicadas, the creak of porch steps, and a family whose light flickered in ordinary ways. There were moments of laughter, warmth, the simple beauty of routine. But underneath, she felt a quiet separation, that hush between her inner world and everyone else's conversation. Have you ever watched the world through a window pane, feeling somehow apart, like you could see everything but not touch it? That was Katie's early life. She learned to move through the days, reliable, polite, but inside was always some question waiting behind her chest. The grown-ups had their roles perfectly rehearsed: dreamers, caretakers, worriers, doers. But Katie looked at them and wondered, without words, if peace ever lasted beyond Sunday mornings or those rare moments of shared silence. Home was both anchor and a place of unspoken rules. Love came with caveats, approval earned through fitting in, pain softened by denial. She grew up with a talent for reading moods, a sixth sense for the sadness someone tried to hide before bedtime, the anxiety just below the daily chores. She carried her worries like smooth stones in her pocket, never heavy enough to be seen, always enough to shape how she walked through the world. School, friendships, even faith, these became costumes she wore well. Bright and attentive, Katie gave what was needed: smiles, the right answers, gentle listening. But even achievement felt like a thin blanket. She watched her mother's stoicism, her father's withdrawn distance, and wondered what was missing in the way people loved each other. A longing grew quietly. If there was a way to be at ease, to be truly free from the ghost of worry, she hadn't found it yet. Sometimes, late at night, Katie pressed her head to the cool glass of her bedroom window and asked questions, soft, wordless, but urgent. Why do we hurt? Why do we pretend? What am I missing about being alive? Those questions lived in her breath, the silent companions as she grew from girl to woman, moving through the rituals of Southern life, feeling like a wanderer in her own body. And so wonder grew alongside her pain, love and difficulty, the swirl of being too sensitive, too attuned, too awake in a world that told her to mute herself. The longing didn't fade, but in those earliest memories, it was more gentle curiosity than suffering. She just wanted to belong, to rest, to find a place where the ache relented even for one night. There are stories that change your mind, and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight, on the Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie, questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. Maybe you're listening in the quiet of your own room, the day fading behind you, that hush settling in. Maybe there are things you carry, old questions, loops of thought, a soft ache that lives under your ribs. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt the weight of should pressing down on your chest, making each inhale just a little more difficult? Maybe there was a time you wondered, is there a way out of suffering? Not by escaping the world, but by feeling more at home inside yourself. That's exactly what Byron Katie, questions that set you free at night, once felt too. These next minutes aren't just about listening, they're about remembering. Remembering that no story is separate from your own. As you settle in, feel the edges of your body soften. Let go of any expectation to learn or improve. For now, it's enough just to be here. There's a certain kind of quiet that settles when someone has lived through both the storm and the stillness, and has come to welcome both. Byron Katie is that quiet, not as an impossible sage, but as someone who met her darkest hours alone in a silent room, unsure whether she'd ever rise again. It's easy to believe we are our painful thoughts, but what if, in the dark, there was a way to gently turn towards those thoughts, just enough to see them as part of you, not your whole sky? Here tonight, we move through Byron Katie's life in gentle steps, meeting her as she was, an ordinary soul with ordinary wounds who stumbled toward something extraordinary, not by seeking, but by quietly questioning. If your mind wanders, that's okay. There are no right answers, no pressure to change, only a shared breath, a quiet invitation, because somewhere between the questions and the answers is peace you may have forgotten you could touch. Let's begin. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie, questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt like your mind was all noise, looping the same worries, the same doubts? Maybe there was a time when you lay in bed, heart racing, chasing a memory or mistake that just wouldn't fade, wondering if you'd ever feel real ease. That's exactly what Byron Katie, questions that set you free at night, once felt too. There's something honest about silence in the dark. No one's watching you. No one expects anything. In the quiet, you notice the tension in your jaw, the thoughts running like water under a locked door. Maybe you try to push them away. Maybe you wish for peace so much it aches. Byron Katie knew this yearning well, the feeling of being trapped by your own mind, looking for a way out. But what if the door could open from the inside? What if right here, as you settle in for sleep, you could unlearn the war with your thoughts? Tonight you're invited into that space, where the edge between pain and peace isn't as sharp as you think, where even the toughest story about your life can soften just a little before you drift off. Byron Katie's journey isn't about perfect answers. It's about inviting in the honest questions, the kind that hush the mind, that loosen the grip of worry. If you're listening to this, some part of you already reached for that freedom. That's not an accident. Maybe you're tired of struggling. Maybe you're ready to see what happens if you let go just enough to listen to yourself, to the quiet wisdom under all the noise. Right now, there's nothing for you to do, no one to impress. It's safe to simply be here. In the next breath and the next together, let this be your gentle invitation. The world may try to shape you, but tonight you shape your world from the inside out. Your story and Byron Katie's story touch in the hush of uncertainty and the longing for truth. If some part of you is seeking, that's not a flaw, it's a sign you're alive. As you lie back and listen, feel the weight falling from your shoulders. Here, you'll travel the path of questioning, not as an interrogation, but as a homecoming. If a quiet light glows in your chest now, that's your spirit recognizing something, some ancient memory of peace. If you're ready, just settle in. Let go, even for a moment. The night will hold you. As you follow this story, let every breath soften what hurts and invite in what frees. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about remembering you are enough right now as you are. So here we are together at the edge of transformation. Stay with me. There's more to this night and to your story than you ever imagined. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Here, in the quiet of your night, right at this moment, as your body finds the pillow and the hush settles around you, there's a soft invitation to listen, not with the mind's urgency, but with that gentle awareness that peeks out when the world is slow and the day's weight begins to lift. Sometimes a story sneaks in through the cracks in your defenses, right when your guard is down and your longing is close to the surface. Sometimes it sits quietly, unfolding, until it starts to sound like your own voice speaking back to you beneath the noise. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie, questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. Katie's presence isn't for the spotlight or applause, but for those tiny shifting moments when you realize there is more to life than just surviving another day. You may not know her story in detail. You may not even know her name. But you know the hunger she felt, the longing for peace, for real clarity, for even a fragment of purpose as the world pressed in. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt at the end of a long day that subtle ache, like wanting to turn your mind off and just rest, free of worry or regret? Maybe there was a time when you did everything right on the outside, but your insides were full of storms, questions you couldn't answer, pain you couldn't name. Maybe night after night you lay awake, wishing something or someone could show you a real way out, or at least show you that you weren't alone for feeling this way. That's exactly what Byron Katie, questions that set you free at night, once felt too. She wasn't born a teacher. She began as a restless, searching soul, just as uncertain, just as tangled up in her own shadows and self-doubt as any of us. She faced those private midnight battles, the ones that never make it into the highlight reels. But something happened. In a moment both ordinary and extraordinary, her life took a turn, not all at once, but more like a breath you didn't know you'd taken, warming your chest from the inside out. Tonight we'll step into her world softly and slowly, following her quiet rhythm, her questions that opened doors, her nights spent with insomnia, anxiety, longing, and what bloomed out of that restless soil. Her path isn't about big mystical secrets. It's about clear, simple truths that show up quietly but change everything. Listening to her story may not solve your problems overnight, but it might loosen something inside, make space for a different kind of rest. Not just sleep, but rest in your own skin, rest in a mind that doesn't have to fight itself anymore. So as you get comfortable, as you let your body surrender to this new rhythm, let's drift gently into the space where questions aren't threats but invitations, the same space where Byron Katie discovered her own freedom. This story isn't just for your ears. It's for the part of you that remembers quiet, even in the storm, the part of you ready to find a different way of being. If you listen softly, you might notice a different kind of breath moves through you now, and the door to your own freedom is already beginning to open. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on the Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt worn out by your own thoughts? Maybe there was a time when it all felt heavy, like the world was just a little too much, and peace felt as far away as another planet. That's exactly what Byron Katie once felt too. Her name might sound familiar, or maybe it's new. But tonight isn't about knowing her, it's about feeling seen by how she made sense of suffering and set herself free quietly in the room where night meets morning. Let's settle in here, wherever you're lying back now. Imagine the room fading, the day's edges softening. Maybe your breath wants to slow down. Maybe you want to let something go. That tiredness inside you, the waiting for answers, the questions you carry. We're going to walk it all out together. No pressure, no trying. Just story as medicine. A rhythm as real as a heartbeat. Words that aren't heavy, they're here to lift you, loosen the knots in your mind, and invite you to feel lighter inside your own skin. Tonight, the voice you'll hear is not a teacher, not a therapist, not a dream, just a friend whispering through the dark, steady, honest, calm. I'll carry you through Byron Katie's life, but even more, I'll walk with the part of you that needs peace most of all. So, as the room quiets down, as your body decides it's time to rest, let's meet the place inside you that wants freedom, the place that's ready for softness, where your truth lives in the cracks of ordinary moments. You don't need to do anything. Just listen. Just breathe. If you start to drift, let yourself drift. The story will keep you gently, like the steady tide. Because this isn't a story you have to remember, it's a story your heart already knows. Peace isn't a destination. It's what you are under it all. Welcome to the modern mystic. Welcome to Byron Katie and to the questions that set you free at night. She was once just a person sitting with pain before she was Byron Katie, lost and searching like all of us. And right there in that ordinary ache, her turning began. But first, let's begin even further back, with a longing that waited underneath her skin, long before anyone else knew her name. There are stories that change your mind, and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight, on the Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Byron Katie questions that set you free at night, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt a heaviness you couldn't name? Maybe in the quiet of the night, or in the hollow after a busy day, when you lay alone with your thoughts. Maybe there was a time when you questioned everything but found no clear answer. Maybe peace seemed like something far away, reserved for the rare, the gifted, or the saintly, the ones on distant mountain tops, not people like us, trying to rest between ordinary days. That's exactly what Byron Katie questions that set you free at night once felt too. Let's just lie here together for a moment, you, me, and the quiet night. Notice your breath. Notice if it wants to slow down just a bit. Soften your jaw. Unclench your shoulders. Sink into where you are. Imagine a life where your restless questions could set you free instead of keep you up, where troubled thoughts become invitations to clarity, where wounds, even the deep, old ones, transform into open doors, letting in light. Byron Katie did not arrive on this road by accident or luck or inheritance. Her story is about a woman who, in the darkest places of the mind, found a key not to escape to somewhere brighter, but to return home to herself, exactly as she was, late at night, in the quiet. Maybe you know what it's like to want to come home, not to a place, but to a peace inside yourself that can hold everything, the ugly, the difficult, the grief, the mystery. Maybe you've longed to feel awake, even as the world tells you to sleepwalk through another day.